Hello and welcome to More Than Commas. I'm your host, Paul Adams, and I am joined by Mr. Cory, the shepherd of people's finances shepherd, joining us today. And I'm excited about it because he has been a big part of the series leading up to today. So you guys saw our episode 313 where we talked about the annuity puzzle and that these annuities, economists agree universally, are one of the best tools to help people insulate themselves from longevity risk, meaning they're going to live a long time, but people don't do them. And then we took a series of episodes where we took one of the most critical financial minds toward both permanent life insurance and annuities and went blow by blow with all of his concerns or considerations about Ernst & Young's white paper that discussed it.
It got about as heavy as I've ever let it get in one of the episodes I've been a part of. Yeah. I got as close to me letting him swear as we've ever gotten. If you want to see that, definitely tune into that whole series.
I ordered my bleep button, so we'll be able to bleep me in future sessions. But now today, after Cory going through that piece by piece, how people worry things like, oh my gosh, I'm going to put this money in and I'm going to be taken advantage of by the insurance company simply because I put my money in and I was hit by a bus 2 weeks later. But that's not the case. The insurance company makes whatever they make based upon the average of thousands and thousands of people getting promised lifetime income. So all we're doing is sharing that risk with others. But aside, that was all the philosophy, but today we're going to test it. We're going to test what it's actually like to retire and use these for cash flows versus the way most people retire. So Cory, maybe to kick us off, you could just kind of share what it is when you first came into the industry and you and I were being taught about finance. Right. What did they teach us we should do with people's money when they get close to retirement?
It was almost like akin to the law of gravity that you're going to become less aggressive in your portfolio, safer, more bonds, less stock, going from an 80% stock portfolio down to 80% bonds, 60% bonds, and the rest in stock. And I think two problems with that. One, the biggest problem is actually it doesn't help as much as people think it does, because, the 2000 mortgage crisis showed us like bonds and stocks can go down at the same time in a big way. Yep. Which before that period, part of why folks went more bond heavy is that everyone just assumed they were a perfectly inverse relationship. Bonds could go down, not as much as stocks, but if stocks were going down, bonds were usually going up. So you really balance it. Well, that's not always true.
Well, and with that, if we have a larger fix, so if you guys are listening, you're going to sometimes hear us say equities or stocks. Those are the same thing. Mm-hmm. Or we'll say bonds and fixed income. Those are synonymous most of the time. So if you have more fixed income in your portfolio returns will be lower over long horizons of time than, say, having 80% equity exposure. And the way people related to it was, hey, you were a long-term investor while you're working, but now that you're retired, you're a short-term investor. But that's not true either. Because for those of you that have worked with us in the past or have listened to our episodes for a while, you know that if a 65-year-old couple is healthy, the average life expectancy of the couple, meaning the second death, which is how long our money needs to last in retirement, is age 93. If you retire to 60, 65, you have decades and decades left as an investor.
Some of your money is now a short-term investor, but a lot of your money is still got to go a lot of years before it comes back and sees you again.
Yep. That's right. And so when you take that posture of less risk What you're also giving up is the capital appreciation that you want. To give you an extreme version, if you own nothing but bonds, or even more extreme, bought nothing but CDs or left your money in savings, you would just slowly lose year over year to the cost of living and inflation.
And longevity is the real risk that we're talking about here, because in the immortal words of Tom Hegna, longevity risk is actually the biggest risk in retirement because it's a multiplier of all the other risks. The longer your longevity that you face, the bigger impact inflation is going to have compounding over time. The bigger impact all of these other risks are going to have on your outcomes.
And for those of you that follow us on social media, get ready for one of those things where it's a picture of my face and a quote. And what the quote says is that we need to outperform well into our old age. That just because we're retired doesn't mean we're short-term investors. That's the quote you guys want to take away from today. And that the volatility of how long you live is a far greater risk than the volatility of your investment portfolio. To Cory's point, you live 5 extra years. What did you multiply? Inflation risk. That's 5 more years your portfolio could have volatility. Everything gets bigger as a result of longevity. So how do we address it? Well, Cory's talked about it in the annuity puzzle episode, and we discussed it with the white coat investor. We can trade an amount of capital to an insurance company to get a guaranteed income contract for the rest of our life. This is referred to as generally an immediate annuity. And so what we're going to be talking about is not annuities that have some kind of investment that you're putting money into and they promise it's going to grow based upon the S&P 500 or whatever. None of that. None of that speculative stuff that has given these lifetime income contracts a bad rap in the marketplace. Yeah. Very simple and basically the same math that's being done when a big company like Boeing, let's say, pays a lifetime pension. It's just the same calculation, but we're trading our dollars for that lifetime income, making sure we never, ever outlive our money. And okay, anything else you make sure people want to see before we jump into the actual math?
Right. Just philosophically, why we take this approach is that the market occurs to us as the most efficient place to take on risk in the interest of outperformance. If we're going to trade away from that, we got to get something different. That's why these income annuities that we're talking about take risk entirely off the table. We have a guaranteed payout, and anything that says we'll give you some income, but it's based on something that's going on in the market, then we're not really getting a new thing that's net helpful. We want to take all that uncertainty and only base it on what we know is guaranteed inside of that contract. So that's why we're using this specific kind of annuity. These other ones could be helpful. Something good could come out of it. We can't tell you whether that's the case in this podcast. So we have to go to the guaranteed basis, and that is what we want to use in most of our planning whenever possible.
All right. To caution everybody, you're about to see a ton of numbers.
If you've got numerophobia, please look away from the screen.
Yeah, numerophobia. I didn't even know.
I just made that. I don't know if it's real.
It is.
I don't know if it's real. Sounds good.
All right. So we have a unique thing going on. Did it work? Did it show good?
Yeah, it shows good. I was just kind of like, Paul's built this amazing strategy. I often am the person who creates crazy spreadsheets that do fun things, and it's great to see one from Paul because I get to be like, "Whoa, what are all these things? Tell us about it."
Maybe what I should do is tell you how I got here. So based upon having, looked at some of the stuff that had Cory build that episode, the annuity puzzle, I then went a little bit deeper in a conversation with ChatGPT where what I was playing with was the idea of if I want lifetime income, I can trade for lifetime income for a lot less than I can invest for lifetime income. And here's what I mean. So in here, this is an example of somebody with $10 million of capital at work at age 65. Okay. Now we know the math. You've been listening to the podcast for very long. You know it's a 4% distribution rate that we can take from our investments each year and have the reasonable expectation that our money will last as long as we do. So if you had $10 million and it was all invested, then it would look like this. Over on the right-hand side, I'm going to talk about the left-hand side in a moment. This is a $10 million portfolio, and it's getting just about 4% distributed each year.
These 3 columns.
396,000.
3 columns. For those of you who are just listening, it's a much calmer spreadsheet right now. We went all the way over. It's a great place to start.
And then the alternative is what we talked about earlier, that people go way heavy on fixed income for the hope of diminishing volatility, which they do to some extent. You can see the first 3 years of distributions has the person with the 80-20 portfolio down to under 9 million, whereas the person with 50-50 portfolio wasn't hit as bad in that market downturn and still has 9.4 million. Now, it takes $10 million of capital at work to dependably produce $400,000 a year for the rest of your life. Or we could just trade $6 million for it. Now, not that this isn't a big decision for this family, but we're doing the math behind it. These numbers, by the way, work at 4 million. They work at 2 million. It's just a matter of having it applied to your situation. But so generally speaking, go ahead, Cory.
If I could maybe try to ask the question you're trying to answer with this sheet, like a lot of people see annuities as a prohibitive cost, both in fees that might be associated with it and the loss of liquidity or the ability to do something different with your money. But on the side of hedging against market risk by like adding 50% bonds to your portfolio, there's a cost to that too. And so what we're really asking is, based on this situation, which appears to be the greater cost or the lower cost to create the security that we need. Is that
well said?
Is that fair?
Well said. Well, and that leads right to the next point, which is
this episode is brought to you by Sound Financial Group. At Sound Financial, we specialize in helping clients build strong, long-term financial strategies for their retirement. If you're looking for personalized advice to help manage your wealth, visit us at sfgway.com to learn more about how we can help you achieve your goals.
To trade for lifetime income is $6 million to then get on a joint life basis. This is husband and wife getting $396,000 for as long as they live. They never invest another dollar. If the stock market crumbles, they have a guaranteed income. Now, we need inflation. We've got to have some additional gains. But to start with, this person walks into retirement, and here's what we say they're going to do differently. One, $6 million to the annuity. Second, that's going to leave us $4 million total. But you know what they want to do? They want to make a gift to their children, or they want to buy a really cool car, or they're going to buy an RV. Whatever it is, they're going to take $200,000, just use it any way they want. Again, because they're not needing to have their entire portfolio produce income, they can have some of it invested and they can take risk. They can take risk the rest of their life. They can enjoy equity rates of return. Why? Because they don't have to count on performance to produce their income. But performance can produce income, and this is how we designed it. Up here, we have a trigger. Anytime their portfolio does over 10%, and this is a little bit out of order, but historical returns of the 80-20 portfolio, every time it gets double-digit returns, what we do then, Cory, is we take off 4% of the portfolio. So if it goes up more than 10, then we distribute 4. That buys one new annuity. So in this case, $210,000 goes into annuity. And the following year, that creates another $13,800 of income. now giving them $409,000 of income guaranteed for the rest of their life. So far, so
And
good.
as they get, there's a couple of things I love about this. One, we do need to keep up with inflation, but inflation, can be connected to a lot of different things going on in the market. Like technically, most of the time, if the market is on a tear, inflation maybe keep also occurring. But what I love about this is we're really tying to the times when it's favorable to pull out of the portfolio is when we're doing something, which is different than if we were saying anytime inflation raises cost by a total amount, we're going to pull some out of the annuity. We don't know if that's a great time to do it in the market, if it's favorable, so we can be invested more aggressively, and we're automatically harvesting high. And I really like that, which then, you just got 37% return and you're taking 4% of that out. That probably builds a buffer for several years worth of inflation in the future.
Bet.
Yeah.
You bet it does. And in this case, in this illustration, we show 4 years in a row where there was over double-digit returns. And so we got some income increases. Now, to make it fair on both sides of the ledger, what I did is I took that exact same increased income off of the other investment portfolios. So, for instance, you might be able to pull off this 80-20 portfolio. You're going to have some big times of volatility where there's multi-million-dollar swings on your money. And yet, over this period of time, if you started at 10 million, you might be able to end with 41 million, taking out your distribution every year from your 80-20 portfolio. But you're going to have an unbelievable constitution to continue to hold that portfolio all throughout your retirement. What will usually happen when people just use assets to produce income is they will take less risk. That's the 50-50 portfolio. All the same distributions, but they end up with 12.6 million at the end. As we took that income, and for the sake of this illustration, you'll see I didn't keep increasing their income. After age 90, I figured, they're probably good with that level of income for the rest of their life. And maybe they felt fine about that at age 85, but I took income increases up through age 90, but that leaves us $25 million on the side. And here's the point that I want to make for all of you listening. The $25 million, if we wanted to look at it purely analytically, is more than if somebody had done 50-50, and it is less than if they had been able to stay in an 80-20 portfolio their entire life. So this is a part I want everybody to be able to leave with. That yes, there's more money than the 50-50 portfolio, but if I'm up here at age 70, and let's say my child says, I'm tired of corporate America, Dad, I want to start a business, and he's going to need $1 million to do it. I can take $1 million out and not hurt my income. I can take $1 million out and tell my son or daughter, I want this business to be successful. I certainly don't want you to fail. But in the midst of all the stress that you will have as a business owner, I want you to know taking care of me and your mom is never a part of it. If we never get this money back, we will be okay. And how much different is that than the retiree that maybe has a few $1 million, but they have to keep it all intact because they don't know how long they're going to live and they have no longevity risk offset. You see, not only could I do that, I could give an extra $1 million to my church. I could make an endowment or another charitable group that I care about. I could pay for my grandkids' college education. I can do any of those things knowing that that core of my capital, if I have lifetime income guarantees, not only do I put myself in the position I can be far more generous, I can actually leave the inheritance while I'm still around to help people mentor them in their money, to help mentor them in their decisions, to help mentor them in the difficulty of what it's like to have more money than what you've been able to put on your balance sheet yet. You see, it's a totally different life for someone who is guaranteed to have their income coming in terms of their stress and their capacity to be generous. And so I think what we've proven here, Cory, is yes, the math works. That if somebody says, oh, annuities are just a terrible idea, they probably haven't looked at the math. And if somebody says, you should have all your money in the annuities,
they haven't looked at the math either.
or they have, but they looked at it on their commission statement
right.
and not on the client's balance
Right.
sheet. So what we want you guys to be able to walk away with is, yes, the capital at work model is important. Yes, aim for your 4% capital at work, meaning if I want to have $400,000 of income, it's going to take 10 million. But when we get closer to that date, get some help. Get some help from us or someone like us to be able to dial it in so that you have no longevity risk as it relates to your income. And more importantly, the people around you don't have longevity risk. I will tell you, every single person who cares about you when you're over the age of 75 is worried about whether or not you will run out of money. And I want you to put yourself in the position. You may know somebody that's kind of at that age now that you have those concerns for, an aunt, an uncle, a parent. And yet, you know, you don't say anything to them about it, nor do you ask, but you carry that around for the people that you care about. And what we're encouraging our clients to do is to communicate with their kids. We're good. You take care of your finances. You don't have to include me in your planning, because that's one of the greatest gifts we can give our children. They don't have to worry about us living with them in their old age, and they don't have to worry about us running out of money where we're going to be tapping their balance sheets, you know, when they're of the age where they're having children, maybe choosing for a spouse to stay home with them, et cetera. When money is really tight, you as a parent don't want your children having to make those decisions. And maybe your parents put you in the position where you had to carry some of that. Let's just break that generational curse and make sure that your children never have to worry about you running out of money.
You know what
Cory,
pops
anything
up
else
for
you want to
me?
leave everybody with?
Yeah, this idea that we've talked about in a lot of other contexts, that structure brings freedom. We make decisions, like in our business, we make decisions like we're going to commit to meeting with all of our team the same time every day of the week. And it takes a little bit of freedom out of that block of the week, but it gives us so much more freedom in the rest of our life, because we take care of the things that are most important with our team, and then they give us that, right? So same with our money. If we can bring a certain amount of structure to some of it, it gives us an amazing amount of freedom in our life with the rest of it. And that's what I see out of your sheet here.
Right on. Well, y'all, I'm glad you could join us for this journey from episode 213 through to today. What we're going to talk about on our next episode, so that you don't miss it, is how the book Die with Zero plays into some of these strategies and what it could mean for you. If you're one of the people that has enjoyed that book, Die with Zero, we'll put you in a position to give you some real math you can use to build your own Die with Zero strategy. Now with that, I hope you join us for the next episode, but get back to living a great life.